Hi, impromptu listeners. For the last few weeks, we've been bringing you some of the most interesting stories and conversations from Washington Post opinions writers. In this latest installment, we're going to hear from Rachel Manteuffel about some of the surprises she encountered after being diagnosed and treated for cancer. Here she is.
Hello, I'm Rachel Manteuffel, and this is my story about chemo curls called When Life Gives You Garfunkel. It's still not me in the mirror. It's obviously my teeth being brushed with my toothbrush. Who else's face would it be, holding the mouth with my teeth in it? Outside, I see my shadow, and then look around for little orphan Annie. A year and a half ago, at 39, I qualified for the adolescents and young adults category of cancer patients. It's nice to still be precocious. The breast cancer survivorship predictions that my doctor showed me were all fairly reassuring as these things go, especially since I chose to get chemotherapy. But the statistics we have are all based on previous generations that didn't tend to get cancer this young. Nobody knows why this is happening. Anyway, I went bald. It was an adventure. I was aerodynamic. The shower drain never needed cleaning. More strangers complimented my head than ever in my life. I liked it, too, as an experiment with a defined endpoint. Life would return to normal. When chemo ended, I would not. And my hair would come back. It did not. Hair came back, but it was someone else's hair. Thicker, fluffier, and curly. The hair, in fact, that I had tried for years to achieve without success. Thanks, cancer. As a youth, I was disappointed by the hair I'd always had. It was mismatched with what I felt my hair should be. Wild, untamed, anything but droopy, flat, and always the same. The hair my brain recognizes as mine was also Marsha Brady's, except thinner. 3 feet long, straight, never ever gonna curl or have body or volume. I wasn't born knowing that. I spent decades going to CVS, looking uncertainly at one product or another. A kind of cornstarch you massaged into your roots, or a 400-degree crimper, or various goos and sprays and objects you wrap your hair around. These came home with me for another episode of The Hair That Wouldn't Do Squat. Now, the hair does everything. In 360 degrees, all at once, Marsha Brady is gone from my mirror, and Richard Simmons is in her place. Ask the internet, and medical sites tell you that chemotherapy sometimes changes your hair follicles. Also, sometimes it doesn't. And these changes last about 9 months, or 2 years, or some other amount of time, including forever. Also, it sometimes doesn't. A lack of published scientific information about chemo curls didn't stop expert scientific explainer guy Hank Green from finding out more. He undertook his own in vivo experiment, subjecting himself to chemotherapy in the name of science, and also because he had Hodgkin's lymphoma. The experiment worked. He emerged a cancer-free, curly man, though he has straightened back out now. It might have something to do with the shape of the follicle, or the proteins being produced, or how the cells are arranged in there as they heal, he says. But as of now, we don't really know. It gets weirder. Chemo enabled him to grow a beard, whereas before he only shaved once a week. People online have reported that their curls also change with birth control, pregnancy, gender transition. The New Yorker has a story about chemo essentially curing a woman's schizophrenia. Curls are fluff. This isn't where we should spend our disappearing science funding. And a study won't tell me what I want to know, which is that my curls will stay this way at least long enough for me to figure out curls. Several lifetimes worth of watching TikToks await. Plus, I do situational research. Recently, when a ringleted Apple Store guy asked if he could help me, the first thing I said was, "What is your curl routine?" He said, "Shampoo once a week." Score. At first, my hair came back like you'd expect, as the softest stubble. At about half an inch, though, there started to be a distinct ripple. The ripple evolved into 90s Billy Crystal. I clearly was not specific enough when I wished for the hair in When Harry Met Sally. There was a Nancy Reagan moment, and since then, it has gotten darker and more and more and more poodle. I call this the haircut nobody asks for, or baby's first do. It has changed the shape of my face. Old friends don't recognize me. They seem to share some of the discomfort I feel standing in front of the mirror. Who is this? It's like I uncanny valleyed myself. As soon as I knew that my diagnosis probably wouldn't kill me, I started focusing on the moment I could go back to being the me who wasn't sick, or more precisely and cruelly, the me who did not know she was sick. Cancer friends, that's a category now, reassured me it would happen, but the curls have blocked my fantasy that I could be the same person again. They forced me to transition from surviving to survivor. Chemo did a bunch of things besides maybe saving my life. It aged my skin, weakened my bones, and made me have to pee about twice as frequently. One of my eyebrows didn't really come back. I get shots to keep me in menopause. Fear makes me draw a mark on my leg where I feel a bone ache and take a picture so I know if it's in the same place the next time it aches. Bones are often where breast cancer metastasizes. Whether I accept it or not, I am older. But there's only one way not to get older. Surprise, it's dying. And I faced it last year. I took poison in hopes of someday looking good for 55. I'd prefer it not be like today. After months of treatment and feeling, let's call it liberated from the concept of pretty, it's wonderfully odd to have a whole new kind of pretty dropped on my shoulders. It has also been pretty great to have a reconstruction surgeon earnestly asking me what kind of breasts I would like. Where was he when I was 15? It's been a kind of strange reverse puberty. New hair, boobs, and hormones. Everyone treats you differently now. The woman who didn't know she had cancer had mastered denial. She was almost absurdly, determinedly carefree, driving a 23-year-old car and being astonished when it broke down. She didn't go to the doctor regularly. She didn't even have a doctor. Nothing bad could happen to her. The disease fed on her immaturity. I don't get to be her anymore. I have to grow up and acknowledge that it's really me in the mirror. But to the extent that hair is identity, getting a new mirror image at 41 is a gift. I am a new me in a way that isn't gray and wrinkles and aches. And I have no idea, none at all, what I'll look like, what I'll be in 3 months. Talk about staying young. My face isn't mine in the mirror, but the hair finally somehow matches my spirit. She is wild. She is a gift. A lifeline that I'm not getting more staid in middle age. A bridge, you might say, but also some troubled water.
We're going to hear more of Rachel's conversation about chemo curls with YouTuber Hank Green. That's right after the break. Welcome back. So, Rachel, as you were working on this piece, you decided to call up Hank Green. Can you tell our listeners who he is and why you wanted to talk to him about this?
Yeah. Hank Green is like, Bill Nye for me, but for Gen Z. And he has had this wonderful SciShow that people who are currently in their 20s watched when they were in middle school. And so this, generation looks up to him as a guy who explains things to them on the internet. So he got cancer at around the same age I did and already had this platform. He's very busy, but he carved out a little chunk of time to talk about it because it's so weird, chemo curls. And it's just this very weird thing that there's no explanation for. Even he has a pet explanation, but it really doesn't explain things like how does it change your beard then, and why it changes color. There's just so much going on that is under-discussed. And it was so frustrating to me that all of the advice out there was, well, yeah, this happens. Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's play it. Here's part of your conversation with Hank Green.
Chemotherapy turned your hair and mine completely different. As a man of science, what the hell?
So I, of course, looked into this. What is mechanistically, physiologically happening to the hair follicle? is not entirely clear. There are strong hypotheses.
What's your favorite theory?
The way that hair curliness works is it seems to be the shape of the hair follicle and in particular the angle that it has in the skin. So if it's straight up and down, that hair is going to be really straight. And if it's to the side, angled in the scalp, you get a curlier hair. The hypothesis that I like is that when your hair follicles have no hair in them, they get into like a more relaxed configuration and they sort of flop down and have like maybe a bit more of an angle, like they change shape in some way. And then as the hair comes back, it's coming back through a different shaped follicle. Now, I will say that this doesn't explain everything because it isn't just curliness. Like chemo curls is one thing, but sometimes color changes. Sometimes you have more gray hair, sometimes you have less gray hair. People with red hair come back with not red hair anymore. It's wild.
So you said that curly hair is better, more work, but better. Tell me how you figured out what work your hair required, because I got no idea.
I took people's advice. Also, I watched YouTube videos of people with their curly hair routine. And one thing you definitely really don't want to do is get out of the shower and do what I did every time I got out of the shower for my whole life and just rub your whole head with a towel.
Yeah, can't do that anymore.
Can't do that anymore.
You have to use a t-shirt or a microfiber.
Catherine, my wife, would always be like, stop touching it. The main thing that I would do is instead of rubbing, I would scrunch.
Aha.
Scrunch the water away rather than rubbing the water away because you're going to break up all your curls and you'll just get really frizzy.
Yeah.
There was a long time where it would almost feel disrespectful to talk about anything in the frame of cancer without a lot of sort of gravity.
Yeah.
There's many different diseases and it can hit in many different ways. But I think that there is a way in which we are still in our minds living in the 80s and 90s, because that's when our grandparents were getting sick, or there's just like a cultural lag to this whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we're treating it as if cancer is still like usually a death sentence, which at this point, officially, it isn't. Most people who get diagnosed with cancer die of something else. Not everywhere, but in the US. It used to sort of be like, it was always the same outcome. Why talk about it? And now I feel like we're in the transition where all of this stuff is just part of life.
Mm-hmm.
It can be end of life, but it is also often part of life. And in that way, like, it's weird that there's this very common side effect of chemotherapy that's just like never discussed, even though it's not bad. It's just kind of interesting. It's like kind of time for that to change,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can have this be part of life. And maybe that can make it a little less scary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel, for sharing your story. That's all we've got for today. This episode was produced by Regina DeHeer and me, Hadley Robinson, with help from Joanna Shan and Shi Wei Cho. Thanks as always for joining us, and please continue following this feed in the coming months. Until next time.